SkyRush. Oof. Where to begin? Depending on your level, you either love SkyRush or you really hate SkyRush. Even though there are many people who love SkyRush, the truth is that SkyRush was a massive failure and cost Hershey Park millions of dollars, just for being too intense for the masses and destroying riders' thighs. How did this happen? This is the story of SkyRush. So, it's no secret that Hershey Park is known for the brand's chocolate, dumbass. This has been the very backbone when Hershey's founder, Milton Hershey, opened Hershey Park in 1906 shortly after its founding. The purpose of Hershey Park was to be a leisure park for its employees, but slowly but surely, Hershey Park would transition into a full-on amusement park. They slowly started out with a few kiddie flat rides before getting their first roller coaster in 1923. Wildcat. What? No, not that Wildcat. This Wildcat. This PTC Woody is notable for being the first coaster ever designed by Herbert Paul Schmeck. Now, footage of the original Wildcat is extremely rare, because due to World War II causing a lumber shortage, Wildcat pretty much rotted to crap and closed in 1945. Today, the land now sits Wildcat's replacement, Comet, another PTC Woody that's actually really fun. Now, even though Hershey was still growing at a steady rate, that rate was going at the pace of a snail. Hershey Park wouldn't dramatically grow until the 1970s, where a series of major investments would begin. More flat rides and coasters would be added, but the one that truly mattered was Super Duper Looper. This is a terrain-based Schwarzkopf looper that's notable for being the first coaster on the East Coast to have a vertical loop. Now, surprisingly enough, they went another 14 years until they added another coaster in 1991. That's when they started adding coasters like crazy. This is when Hershey would add roller coasters on the regular. This includes, but is not limited to, 2 GCI Woodies, Lightning Racer and the new Wildcat, the B&M Invert Great Bear, a Vekoma Boomerang named Jolly Rancher Remix, a Mock Rides Wild Mouse, and a now defunct Set Point Suspended Water Coaster. This leads to 2004, where Hershey Park's new coaster that year would clash with someone known for quality. For the first 30 years, Swiss manufacturer Intamin purely made compact thrill coasters. Most people are probably aware of their stand-up coasters and especially Flashback. This doesn't really represent Intamin today, so let's skip ahead to 1996 for Intamin's breakout coasters. That year, Intamin announced the reverse freefall coasters for 2 parks, Superman the Escape at Six Flags Magic Mountain and the Tower of Terror at Australia's Dream World. These shuttle coasters consist of a long LSM launch and a vertical spike. This duo is notable for 3 reasons. First, this is the first coaster to use the LSM launch system. This magnetic system for the trains to pick up speed has become the default launch system of choice. Related to that, it's also the first coaster to reach 100 miles per hour or 160 kilometers per hour. Finally, with Superman in particular, it's the first coaster to be built 400 feet or 120 meters tall. Now, due to the prototype nature of the LSMs, both coasters were delayed to 1997, but with the breakout success of the reverse freefall, parks went to Intamin left and right for the best of the best. In 1998, Intamin opened Linear Gale at Tokyo Dome City and Volcano the Blast coaster at King's Dominion. These were prototype inverted coasters with LIM launches, the first on an inverted coaster. Linear Gale is basically the LIM launch with 2 spikes, while Volcano is a unique invert with plenty of rolls that are built within a man-made mountain. Now, Volcano would be the only one of its kind ever built because Volcano was so dang unreliable, the coaster has since shut down. Linear Gale also suffered the same fate, but 7 Linear Gale variants would be built. The next year, in 1999, Intamin debuted its first Hypercoaster, Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. This Hypercoaster has a funky layout with long helixes and that weird section of straight track. I mean, look at this, like, what the fuck? But the Ride of Steel is praised for the few ejector-filled airtime hills. The Mega Coaster is one of Intamin's most popular models with a total of 9. They even scaled it up into a Giga Coaster the next year with Millennium Force at Cedar Point in 2000. The first 300-foot, 91-meter-tall coaster focuses on speed with a few airtime moments. In 2002, Knott's Berry Farm opened Intamin's first accelerator coaster, Accelerator. Knott's needed a compact thrill coaster to replace the disastrous Windjammer surf racers, but they also needed to minimize the noise. Thus came the Accelerator, which consisted of a very powerful hydraulic launch, the top hat, and a couple of overbanks into the brakes. Accelerator is still popular today despite extreme reliability issues. Now, this is where Intamin and Hershey Park would collide. In 2004, Hershey Park approached Intamin to create an extreme launch coaster with some inversions. This would be Storm Runner, an Intamin hydraulic hydraulic launch coaster. This accelerator coaster features the usual launch and top hat, but also throws in 3 different inversions. The first is a cobra loop, which is essentially a deformed Immelman. The other is a flying snake dive, which is made up of half a camelback, heartline roll, and dive loop. Stormrunner is an exciting ride that should not be missed. Hershey Park liked the results of Stormrunner and brought Intamin back for 2 more projects. In 2008, Intamin delivered one of their only vertical lift hill coasters, Fahrenheit. This Intamin creation is a cross of a Gerstlauer Eurofighter and a B&M Looper. Fahrenheit is a fun ride with some nice forces. But even before Fahrenheit even opened, Hershey Park was already planning the coaster of today's discussion. In 2007, Hershey Park was looking to build SkyRush, a new hypercoaster for the 2012 season. While they had preferred one to come from Intamin, this new coaster would have cost double the amount of Fahrenheit, which had a price tag of $12 million. But Intamin influenced Hershey to let them build their hypercoaster on the hollow area. I mean, it's not like Hershey Park had a lot of options for hypers because you have to think of where they placed SkyRush. The plot of SkyRush is extremely small. It basically takes up 2 Pitvari Zyklons worth of land. This is because at the time, Hershey Park was extremely landlocked and didn't have much land, and Intamin is known for fitting high-throw coasters on very thin plots of land. Hershey sealed the deal and now was set to build an Intamin hypercoaster. After getting the ride approved and a fun marketing campaign, Hershey Park officially announced SkyRush on August 2nd, 2011. This is a prototype Intamin wing coaster. Wait a minute, no, this is not a legitimate wing coaster. This is a variant of Intamin's mega coaster. Because of the major land restrictions they were working with, they couldn't just build a regular hyper. This plot of land is smaller than Superman the Ride's Spaghetti Bowl section. That's not even including the actual hyper layout. So Intamin had to get creative by designing a compact twister layout with very tight airtime hills and turns. With the tighter elements, Intamin also had to create new custom trains for SkyRush. I said that this isn't technically a wing coaster, that's only a half-truth. These trains sit in 8 rows with 4 seats across. While the 2 inner seats have a floor, the 2 outer seats sit on the side of the tracks without a floor. The other thing with these new trains are these new overhead lap bars to handle the forces. Now I'm gonna come back to these restraints later because they really play a major role later. The ride experience would be as followed. Passengers board these custom trains and pull down their lap bars. The ride begins with a very fast cable lift. Intamin uses cable lifts a lot on their mega coasters to swiftly pull the trains to the top. You fastly crest a 200-foot, 61-meter tall lift hill. Then you hit this demonic drop. Keep in mind I have yet to ride SkyRush, but according to riders, this drop has one of the most insane airtime of all time. At the bottom of this drop is a quick turn to the right into the first of many ejector-filled airtime hills. This strong, intense airtime is really what SkyRush is known for. After this is a tight turn loaded with strong positive G-forces into another airtime-filled hill, leading into another intense turn into a stangle dive filled with laterals. Then you hit the small twisted hill into another turn into a twisted airtime hill loaded with airtime and laterals. After this, you finish with one more airtime hill and the last turn into the brakes, completing 3,600 feet, 1,100 meters of track. With speeds of 75 miles per hour or 121 kilometers per hour, SkyRush has amazing pacing because it punches you with all the intensity and every force possible. It's every enthusiast's dream to have a coaster like that. SkyRush came with a price tag of $25 million. After a very swift construction process, SkyRush opened to the public on May 26, 2012. So did the guests like it? Not quite. See, SkyRush is one of, if not the most polarizing coaster to ever exist. The fan base is extremely divided, with some loving it and some hating it. And worse, a lot of the general public really despises SkyRush. So even though enthusiasts love SkyRush with a passion, the ride is seen as a flop. But why? This has to do with the forces and especially those trains. With the ride forces, it's important to note that GPs, or the general public, don't like the forces that enthusiasts do. Think of G-forces of SkyRush as the roller coaster equivalent of spicy chicken wings. Avid food critics may enjoy the hotness of the wings, but your average Joe can't handle the madness of the spice. The same thing applies to SkyRush. While enthusiasts enjoy the raw power of SkyRush, the average person finds that kind of power too scary to handle. The issue is that when too much of the general public doesn't like a ride that tries to kill them, what happens is that SkyRush typically has a shorter wait, making Hershey Park lose money. The other problem with people not liking SkyRush is those dang lap bars. The biggest problem with these lap bars is that they crush the thighs of riders to the point it's borderline painful. The lap bars hurt them so much, it's the reason SkyRush has such a polarizing reputation. There's 2 reasons why they hurt your thighs. The first is how they were designed. Remember that SkyRush has some of the most powerful airtime in existence. You can make the argument for strongest airtime, though El Toro however, would beg to differ. And the issue is that with those forces, you need restraints to keep you locked in. You can't have riders constantly being ejected. That's basically a lawsuit waiting to happen. The problem with that is that Intamin's restraints at the time were either not strong enough or they're over-the-shoulder restraints. The closest Intamin had back then was the T-bars, but those actually did kill someone by ejection. Thus came these overhead lap bars. On most roller coasters with lap bars, the bar contours with the laps and thighs so that the forces are evenly distributed. On SkyRush, the bottom is a flat metal bar that rests on the thighs of riders, and all that force goes right into the thighs. So when the ride is over, you're walking out sore like jelly. What compounds the issue even more is that the lap bars have a bad tendency to staple. In the coaster world, stapling occurs when your restraint is set way too far into your lap. Typically you complain because stapling restricts any airtime you get. With SkyRush, the forces will just lower the restraints even further into your thighs. So not only does your airtime weakens, but now the painful bars is digging into your lap. This is why SkyRush is such a polarizing hypercoaster. It's what gives it the name of thigh crush, with the diehards liking the negatives, positives, and laterals, and GPs despising how draining the coaster is combined with the shitty restraints. And since the general public makes up 99% of theme park attendance, this led to Hershey Park losing millions of dollars on SkyRush. What's sad is that even without those shitty restraints, SkyRush would have still been a flop. To understand why, let's take a good look at an Intamin Giga coaster at King's Dominion, Intimidator 305. Wait, what's that? That's no longer the name? When did this happen? Okay, so apparently the NASCAR theme expired, so Project 305, the current name right now, is getting renamed and rethemed. But why do I need to address this Giga coaster? Because this and SkyRush are so dang similar. Mainly the fact that both are 200-foot plus monsters that focus on massive positive G-forces. Project 305 is even more so due to the rapid transitions in high-speed, low-to-the-ground turns. And just like SkyRush, Project 305 was a massive failure. Because 305 was so intense, it made riders black out, which GPs are not a fan of. So when you pair that intensity with those painful lap bars, that's a recipe for unpopularity, despite die-hard SkyRush fanboys in the mix. Not to mention two other issues that could appear with SkyRush outside the ride experience. Note that it doesn't really affect SkyRush as much, but it's worth noting given the nature of this ride. First is reliability. Thankfully, SkyRush is open pretty regularly, which is good because we've seen time and time again how much Intamins are closed due to unreliability issues. Remember when Storm Runner was closed for all of 2020? That was painfully brutal. The other is stress fractures. Thankfully, SkyRush also hasn't run into this issue yet, but given the intensity could be a concern in the future. Stress fractures occur when too much pressure in a specific area of a product ends up breaking. With SkyRush, there's potential for the track to break and cause extended downtime. This is why SkyRush had to use a new style of track. Unlike prior Intamins that uses a hollow box of cross ties, SkyRush uses a beefy double spine track that can withstand the forces. This track is designed for much more intense coasters. And on top of the issues, I heard a while ago that the cable lift snapped. These random issues are the reason only one other wing coaster would be sold, Flying Aces at Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi. Built in the same park as Formula Rossa, this Intamin hypercoaster has many similarities to SkyRush, mainly due to the fact that both are heavy airtime and lateral machines. But Flying Aces also uses the same trains and restraints. But Flying Aces is less polarizing because the lap bars were redesigned to contour with the laps of riders. Because of all these random ass issues, Hershey Park had to do this. In 2018, Hershey Park demolished their old front gate for a new updated one. This new front gate would come with a brand new land, Chocolate Town. This came after Hershey Park bought an extra 30 acres of land next door to the park. This new land is home to shops and eateries, but the marquee attraction is Candemonium, the B&M Hyper. Wait a minute, what the fuck? Why did they add another hypercoaster when they already had SkyRush? Remember that Hershey wanted a hyper that appeals to the masses, but the nature of SkyRush already alienated half of its potential audience. Needless to say, Hershey wasn't really satisfied with the ridership of SkyRush. With Hershey's dissatisfaction with SkyRush, combined with all that new land, they bit the bullet for Candemonium. This B&M hypercoaster is basically graceful floater hills with little positive G's, something that the general public really likes. Candemonium's layout is an out and back with big floater hills, two helixes, and this weird outer bank. Candemonium is way more popular than SkyRush is. But wait, if the biggest issue with SkyRush is with its restraints, why didn't they just replace that? After all, buying new trains is way cheaper than buying a $200 million hypercoaster. Well, that's because steel coaster restraints that could handle SkyRush just didn't exist back then. Let's be for real, if it did, Hershey would have done it years ago. They already did that in 2016 with both Storm Runner and Fahrenheit. Long story short, when both coasters opened, they originally had hard over-the-shoulder restraints that would bash riders' necks. They eventually got replaced with soft straps that are much more comfy. But still, SkyRush has some fans and for a while was the #1 coaster at Hershey Park. That was until 2022, when Hershey Park closed their sucky wooden coaster, Wildcat, the GCI one. Nobody liked Wildcat because it's rough, boring, and the fact a much better GCI Woody sits next door. But what did they do with Wildcat? Give it the RMC treatment. Everyone and their moms love RMCs because they have crazy airtime without any of the pain, as long as you're not Lightning Rod at Dollywood. RMC did their magic and revamped the structure and reopened it as Wildcat's Revenge in 2023. Wildcat is loved for its wonderful forces and immediately became the best coaster at Hershey Park. But while the new Wildcat is getting the praise it deserved, they were cooking something up for SkyRush. In early 2024, Hershey Park released a teaser on their Instagram account of a wooden crate. Considering how late this was announced, everyone knew this was something much smaller. On the crate is the logo for Intamin and also seen as code 27512. These numbers correlate to the height, speed, and opening year of SkyRush. And at the very center of the crate says First Class. Many people assumed SkyRush would get new trains, and sure enough, on February 29th, 2024, Hershey announced new changes to SkyRush. Hershey advertised a new First Class experience. These changes include a new logo, new seats, and most importantly, new lap bars. These lap bars are Intamin's new generation lap bars found on rides such as Velocicoaster. These restraints were originally found on their multi-launch coasters and even some of their hypers. In 2016, Intamin rolled out these lap bars on 2 of their launch coasters, Terran at Germany's Phantasialand and Soaring with Dragon at China's Hefei-Sunicland. This is actually the 3rd iteration of Intamin's overhead lap bars. After the SkyRush dilemma, Intamin only used these exact restraints on 2 other coasters. I already mentioned Flying Aces, but the other is U-shaped roller coaster in China. This is a shuttle coaster that uses wing coaster trains. But after that closed less than a year later, Intamin made a second version of the overhead lap bars. These lap bars are lightweight and contour better with the rider's lap. This variant was originally on Crazy Coaster at Look-A-Joy Theme Park, a modern version of their 10 inversion coaster. These restraints are mostly found at Intamin's modern 10 inversion coasters, with also a few Asian coasters around 2015, such as Red Fire in Turkey and Coasters Through the Clouds in China. But they redesigned them again to handle more extreme forces. The Terran lap bars would be Intamin's default restraints for all their extreme coasters, especially since they're on some of Intamin's best work. But wait, if these restraints have been around since 2016, why did Hershey wait this long to put them on SkyRush? It's because up until recently, they were exclusively found in Europe and Asia. The closest we had to these in America at the time was the Mock Rides lap bars found on Copperhead Strike. It wasn't until recently when American nerds experienced these lap bars. This of course is Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure in 2021. Velocicoaster is the first modern extreme Intamin to come to the US since SkyRush actually. Yeah, that wide gap is a discussion for a whole nother day. Velocicoaster is one of the most perfect roller coasters due to its varied qualities. One of them is those comfy lap bars that everyone loves. More people got to experience these lap bars with Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in 2022. So it's no surprise that Hershey Park made these changes to SkyRush to enhance the ride experience. Now it's important to note that I wrote this script a week after this announcement was made. The ride isn't set to reopen until the opening weekend of 2024, which is probably a couple weeks from when this episode is uploaded, so we don't really know how good it is until then. However, given how much the guests love Intamin's new gen lap bars found on rides such as Velocicoaster and Terran, and the fact people actually like the layout of SkyRush with all that force, SkyRush may just have a brighter future. We know these trains can fit on SkyRush because these trains are similar to Hyperion's trains at Energylandia, because Hyperion's trains is similar to SkyRush's trains. It's just that all 4 seats have a floor, so hopefully SkyRush is running the best it's ever been. Thank you all so much for watching this video. This video is part of my series where we dive into roller coasters and other amusement rides history and dynamics. Like I said before, if you binge watch my videos and do these tasks, the YouTube algorithm will push these videos to more viewers, especially since we have more great content like this in the future. Finally, watch these 2 videos that popped up on your screen when you're done. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.